Welcome everyone, Shabbat Shalom. Welcome everyone, Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to Congregation Kol Ami here in West Hollywood. I want to welcome everyone here in person. Welcome all of you joining us online. I think I need Shabbat this week. I know I say that every once in a while, but some weeks you need it a little bit more, and it's always here with us. I'm thrilled to be joined tonight with our student rabbi, Frankie Salzman, who will be helping me lead our service tonight. Also thrilled to be joined by Alice Wong, who brought us into this space with such wonderful music. We have the privilege of being able to benefit from the music from so many different accompanists, and really, really grateful to welcome Alice back. We'll begin this evening with Dodie Lee on page 129. This section from the Song of Songs talking about the special relationship between the people of Israel, between the Jewish people and God, seeing one another as beloveds, as Dodim. So please join me. Dodi li vani lo arohe bashoshanim. Dodi li zotola min hamidbar mizoto Amin, amin, Dodi li vani lo aroe bashoshanim Dodi li. It's now my pleasure to invite up Michael Becker, who will be lighting our Shabbat candles in memory of his friend Carol Rosenthal.
My mother gave me my life, but Carol saved it. O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter the sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Page 120.
This never works.
We got the matches there as well. Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Finally. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvah sav v'tzivanu, l'chadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat, Blessed are you who commands us to kindle the lights of Shabbat. If you'll join me on page 123 as we sing together the Kiddush. Michael, you're way ahead of me. I invite you to raise your glass. Those of you joining us from home, hope you have some grape juice or some wine with you, and you can bring in the presence of Shabbat with us, page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron ma'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila l'mikra'ei kodesh, zeicher litziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat lechaim. Lechaim, Michael. Thank you so much, Michael. Having opened up our service with this expression of the special relationship between God and the Jewish people, we'll sort of continue that theme as we turn to page 138 for Lachad Dodi, saying, "Welcome, my beloved, my bride," speaking of the presence of Shabbat, also seen as the Shekhinah, the divine presence. As a quick reminder, we'll be doing verses 1, 2, and 9. And upon reaching the 9th and final verse, I'll invite everyone to please rise and face the entrance as a way of symbolically and formally welcoming the presence of Shabbat. I don't know, Frankie, how do you feel? Should we do verse 5 as well tonight?
Why not?
We'll do verse 5 too. 1, 2, 5, and 9.
וזכור בדיבור אחד השמיענו אל המאוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשמו תפארת ולתהילה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה פני שבת וקבלה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה פני שבת וקבלה. לקראת שבת, לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה. מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה פני שבת וקבלה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה פני שבת וקבלה. התעוררי, 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 כי באורך קומי אורי, אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה פני שבת וקבלה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה פני שבת וקבלה. We now rise and face the entrance. בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה. תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה פני שבת וקבלה. לך אדוני לקראת כלה פני שבת וקבלה. Having welcomed in the presence of Shabbat, we now encourage you to turn to one another, to welcome one another. Encourage you to welcome each other online as well. Shabbat Shalom, student rabbi. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom, mom and dad. Ronnie, if you're watching. Rabbi Egger, if you're watching. Mazel tov to you and your family. I invite you to remain standing as we move into the call to prayer 146, the Baruch Hu. Adonai
Please be seated.
We turn to page 149 as we read together at the top of the page this blessing, these words, welcoming in the evening. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, for whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars, creator of the tide of time and light. You guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course to eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim.
Amen.
To love is not a simple thing. To love is to care for the brokenness as much as the beauty. It is an endless task of giving of yourself with no expectation of return. To love is to face truth and not run from it. To commit to a relationship with all and to desire the best for others. To love can be complex, and yet it can be given so freely in this world. For our world was created with ahavat olam, an endless love for humanity. This Shabbat, let us use our prayer to continue pushing forward this endless love and to appreciate the ability for love that we have been given by the Eternal, our one source, who commands us to hear the call to love. Let us rise and turn to page 152 for the Shema as we proclaim that oneness.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Adonai Echad. Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vayim.
You may be seated. The words for Debbie Friedman's English rendering of the Ve'ahavta can be found on the insert in your service bulletin.
And thou shalt love Adonai thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all of thy might. And all these words which I command you on this day shall be upon thy heart, shall be upon thy heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and thou shalt speak of them when thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up, and when thou risest up, and thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand. They shall be for frontlets between thine eyes, and thou shalt write them on the doorpost of thy house, and upon thy gates, and upon thy gates, that ye may remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God.
As we move from love, which student Rabbi Salzman so beautifully taught us about, we move into the actions that we take for love or out of love. In the Ve'ahavta, we talk about carrying this covenant, carrying our obligation before our eyes, upon our hands, with us always, when we lie down, when we rise up. And as we move through the sort of narrative of the service, we arrive at the Micha Mocha, which talks about the act of liberation as an act of love, the act of bringing someone out of the depths of servitude, finding an escape for ourselves out of these narrow places that we find ourselves in, and moving on our way to the promised land. But we know that the journey doesn't stop at freedom, not at least for us. It's not just freedom for freedom's sake, but that freedom, in order to truly lead to the flourishing that we hope it does, needs the binding of obligation. It needs the binding of Torah, the covenant that obligates ourselves to one another. And we know that freedom unchecked can lead to danger. This includes even the freedoms that we lift up to the highest level of the sacred here in our country, including the freedom of speech. We also know how that, left unchecked, can be dangerous. And I think many of us have felt over the past couple of weeks the danger that free speech, when left unchecked, can lead to. And so we celebrate freedom. We celebrate our redemption, but we also remember the responsibility that comes with it, that it's not just freedom that we are after. It's not just freedom that allows us to be redeemed, but it's also the obligations that we take upon ourselves. And it's what we do with that freedom. So if you'll join me on page 158 for Micha Mocha.
Yaakov, the Lord. חזק, חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. יאללה לייז, יאללה ליי ליי, יאללה ליי ליי ליי, יאללה ליי ליי ליי, יאללה ליי ליי ליי.
We turn to page 160 as we read together at the bottom of the page the words of Hashkivenu, this prayer that asks God to give us a sukkah, a shelter of peace. Together. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up our guardian to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace evermore. Baruch atah Adonai, hapares sukkot shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem.
Amen. As much as Shabbat is about love, it's about freedom, it's also about joy. It's about finding joy in difficult moments. And so we find the joy on page 162 with Yismechu. Yismechu ve'malachutcha Shomrei Shabbat ve'korei oneg Yismechu Shabbat ve'korei oneg Yismechu ve'malachutcha Shomrei Shabbat ve'korei oneg Yismechu ve'malachutcha Shomrei Shabbat ve'korei oneg Mekadesh Shevi, Mekadesh Shevi, Kulam, Yisbeu veitangu, Yisbeu veitangu, mituvecha, Yismechu ve'malchutcha, Shomrei Shabbat ve'korei oneg Yismechu ve'malachutcha Shomrei Shabbat ve'korei oneg Chemdat yamim oto karata Chemdat yamim oto karata Zecher למעשה וראשית, זכר למעשה וראשית, ישמחו ומלכותך, שומרי שבת וקוראי עונג, ישמחו ומלכותך, שומרי שבת וקוראי עונג.
As we think about love and about this time of Shabbat that we are entering, how Rabbi Levy said that we need Shabbat maybe a little more this week than usual, we've reached the moment in our service where our love can turn inward, where we have the chance to offer what it is in our hearts to God. Our Amidah, our standing prayer. We encourage you to use the words that are in the Siddur or the words that are in your heart to offer up what it is that you need to share with God this Shabbat. We'll turn to page 164 and rise together, and then we will continue silently through page 180.
Adonai, Sifatai Tivtach, Ufi Agim, Tehilatecha, Adonai, Sifatai Tivtach, Ufi Agim, Tehilatecha.
You're invited to be seated once you've finished your prayer. We'll join back together on page 180. Ratzon imrefi v'yon libi lefanecha yule ratzon imrefi v'yon libi lefanecha ya na 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 ya na 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 ya na 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 oh say shalom bimrom Yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel this point, with our prayers still resonating within our hearts and our minds, we think of those who may be in need of healing at this time, whether it be healing of mind, healing of body, or healing of spirit, seeking that shalom, that wholeness in their lives. This time, Congregation Kol Ami is thinking of John Altschul, Gary Ashland, Stephen Baird, Joan Bergman, Elaine Blatt, Latrice Bloom, Louise Cantrell, Wayne Cantrell, Tino Felipe, Marty Frank, Stephen Hochstein, Tim Jordan, Heidi Kebus, Peter Mackler, Larry Mendelson, Vitaly Popov, Tammy Rabowski, Keith Rand, Michael Rabin, Ben Reback, Arlene Regan, Ivan Rosenberg, Paul Schuten, Lowell Selvin, Miles Sen, Henry Sommerfeld, Wanda Tan, Carlos Torres, Dorian Troster, Jerry Troster, David Suriel, and David Ben Herschel Babasha. To these names, we add those of your own loved ones, or anyone that, if there's anyone that you're thinking of at this time, I encourage you to share their names aloud with us. And those of you joining us online, I encourage you to share the names of your loved ones so we can take them into our hearts with our own. As we pray for strength, for courage, and eventually for healing for these people and those who take care of them, we turn to page 371 in our prayer books for Misha Berach.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
I've often had the experience of interacting with people in professional contexts or otherwise who might use a phrase or a word that many of us would consider for adults only, let's just say, before they felt some kind of sense of embarrassment and said to me, "Oh, sorry, I shouldn't be saying that in front of a rabbi." Typically chuckle and say, "Oh, it's okay. After all, we rabbis are very much humans too." And oftentimes, might use similarly explicit language to express our own frustration, our happiness, or otherwise. Now, the term we use to describe these bad words is usually, help me out here, how do we describe these words? Cursing or cussing, right? And yes, curses, of course. And this is the way we refer to curses in our modern language, but actually, in pre-modern times, curses were very, very serious things. Curses and their counterpart, blessings, were understood to have tangible power to them, with the ability to affect the future and significantly impact a person's life. whether you curse them or you bless them. And we might not place the same weight on blessings and curses as our ancient predecessors, but we do know the power of language. The power of language to hurt, to help, to build, and to destroy. Power that I've discussed a couple times in previous sermons from this bema. Now, those of you who remember all the way back to 5782, when we finished up our annual Torah reading, the book of Deuteronomy concludes with a series of lists of the blessings and the curses that might befall the Israelites if they do or do not follow the Torah, follow the teaching, the laws that have been given to them. Now, in the early moments of 5783, we've returned to the beginning of our story, to the book of Genesis, where the stories are different than the stories that we might find in the book of Deuteronomy, but we still find this similar tension between blessings and curses. Take Cain, for example, whose punishment for the murder of his brother is, "You shall become a ceaseless wanderer on the land." If we were to look at this with a critical point of view, we would see that potential reason for this specific curse to be laid on Cain is the notion that to wander as a nomadic people, a people that are overtly dependent upon their livestock and animals, is less desirable than developing an agrarian society that typically stays in place and relies upon the yield of the harvest. According to this story, at least, to wander is a bad thing, and to stay put is a good thing. And yet, further along in this grand narrative of the early days of humanity that eventually hones in and focuses on a specific family, wandering or journeying from one place to another is seen as a sign of blessing. The beginning of this week's parashah contains the famous call, Lech Lecha, go from your birthplace to the land that I will show you. I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. Of course, the blessing that God offers to Avram and Sarai, their names at this point, includes a land to settle, still maintaining that dream of stability and abundance we find in the Cain and Abel story. And yet the wandering does not cease for long. The moment that they arrive in this new land, this promised land that God would show them, famine forces them to journey further south to Egypt, a journey their family will repeat multiple times over a few different generations. Eventually, Abraham and Sarah do settle the land and enjoy some sense of stability. But as we know, this tension between settling and wandering, or in other words, from early on, we see a blessing and a curse. Even as they dreamt of stability, or we see that this tension continues to fluctuate over the course of the larger narrative of the Torah. And even as our ancestors dreamt of stability, of permanence, feeling safe in one place, their experience continued to be that of wanderers. And so it is the story of wandering that dominates our sacred literature. So much that we never even reach our destination. We never even reach the promised land, but instead start the journey over again each year. We may have never forgot the dream, hatikvah, the hope of being settled as in the days of old, but for the vast majority of our history, we have been wanderers. Now, wandering, it's not all that bad. It has brought us immense gifts from the many different cultures and societies in which we lived. It taught us to speak many languages, to navigate the boundaries between nations, even when tensions made that difficult for others. It allowed us to build and develop a form of religion and culture that did not require a physical home or a central temple. Our wanderings have taught us many things about the world around us and about ourselves. You see, it was through our interaction with different cultures, different religions, different ideas and philosophies that our tradition continued to grow and flourish rather than remain stagnant and unchanging. For many who ponder the nature of Jewish history, and myself included, this wandering is the reason we were able to survive when so many other ancient civilizations faded into the sands of history. Our wandering has brought with it so many blessings, but it's not without its curses as well. In recent weeks, we have seen an extremely disturbing series of outbursts by public figures spewing classic anti-Semitic tropes. People often speak of a rise in anti-Semitism in the past few years, but if anything, it's merely a rising to public knowledge and awareness. These ideas continue to circulate and have been circulated in many circles. It's only recently that they've reared their ugly heads when they find kinship with the outspoken anti-Semitism of public figures, like in this case, Kanye West and Marjorie Taylor Greene, along with others. Just as in days of old, their words have the power of curses, emboldening anti-Semites across this country and in this very city to make themselves known, to issue threats to the Jewish community and whatever else may come as a result of this recent rhetoric. It is horrible. It is painful. It stokes within us a combination of fear and fury that roils within our hearts. And our emotional response comes from our knowledge of history, the knowledge of what such ideas, beliefs, and speech can lead to. We are inheritors of the generational trauma of our wandering and running from the never quite escaping Jew hatred and anti-Semitism. The unfortunate reality is that anti-Semitism is a great curse of our wandering, even as this wandering brings with it many blessings. And even if it has become in many ways the form by which nations have been blessed by us, as our sacred Torah prophesies and encourages us to become. Our wanderings have made us cosmopolitan, well-versed in many different cultures, adept at skills that can be transferred from place to place, and not beholden to strict, simple boxes that each generation seeks to create to distinguish between who is in and who is out. We are a liminal people. We are a culture and a religion, a nation and a faith. We navigate the realities of kingdoms and empires and republics, but also see ourselves as part of a larger collective spiritual and intellectual journey that spans millennia. And this is a scary thing for some people. People who cannot see but beyond their narrow views of what humans are and should be. People who seek simplicity rather than embracing complexity. People whose understanding of history is narrow and unfazed by any truth that might challenge their views. This might just be speculation, but I think this is a big reason why they hate us. Because we carry the stories and the wisdom from forgotten ages. Because we have seen empires come and go, and we know that each one of them felt that they were special and divinely ordained as well. They hate us because we make them feel less special, less extraordinary, a fact that is only solidified and made more ironic by their hatred of us, because anti-Semitism and hatred of Jews is the most trite, common, and uninteresting ideology you could have within the scope of history. So what are we to do? Of course, we must fight. Challenge their misconceptions, encourage learning and awareness, and not sit idly by as violent words might lead to violent deeds. But on this Shabbat, this sacred day of rest given as a gift to all of us, let us not just focus on the curse of our wandering, the difficult parts of being Jewish in this world. Let us instead hone in on the blessing, the many blessings, the generations of knowledge and wisdom that we cherish, the meaning that community can bring into our lives, the joy of a spiritual existence that Jewish tradition can instill, and our fundamental obligation, instilled within us since the days of Abraham and Sarah, to be a blessing unto the world, to spread light and holiness to all parts of the world that we touch. Through our lives, may we be the blessing they refuse to see, rather than focus on the curse they seem to think we are. We are a people that know that life is filled with blessings and curses, but that we must always strive to choose blessing, and by doing so, lengthen our days and bring more peace and more compassion into this broken world. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will. Ken Yehi Ratzonenu, may it be our will. Let us say together, Amen. Thank you. It's now my pleasure to invite forward a member of our Board of Trustees, Mark Perchin, who will offer some important words about the goings-on in our fantastic community here. You can use Frankie's podium.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And Yasher Koach for the sermon, and community is so important. Shabbat Shalom to all those on Facebook. I'm really jealous right now that you're on your couch wearing your sweats, celebrating Shabbat. So I'm Mark Perchin, board member of the trustees, and on behalf of the board, we want to wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom. We want to thank Alice Hong for beautiful, wonderful music this evening, and to Travis Smith for his technical assistance in the back, and student Rabbi Frankie, and of course Rabbi Levy. So just a couple of announcements. Tomorrow morning Shabbat Awakening services return. So join Rabbi Levy and student Rabbi Saltzman at 10 a.m. in person and online for a musical and restorative Saturday morning service. Next Saturday, November 12th, Kol Ami is thrilled to welcome Dr. Mark Benner for our annual Shabbaton, a day of study and community where we will dive into the Jewish medical ethics. This includes a lunch and is free to the community. You just have to register. Thank you to Dr. Nancy Cohen for underwriting this day of study and learning in memory of her parents and brother. Next Friday, November 11th, we will have a special Shabbat service for National Gun Violence Prevention Shabbat. The following week, on November 18th, we will observe Transgender Day of Remembrance. And be sure to mark your calendars for our annual World's Day Interfaith Observance on Thursday, December 1st at 7 p.m. And so much more in the Temple Bulletin and also at the website. So, as always, we hope that you'll keep up to date with all that's happening here at Congregation Kol Ami by visiting our website often at kol-ami.org. That's kol-ami.org. You can register for all of our online and in-person programs. And while you are visiting our website, please consider a donation to our synagogue to support the holy work we do all year long. If you don't already get it delivered to your inbox or twice a week in email, the e-Kalenu also has all the information and more. So please visit. So thank you so much, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much, Mark. Now move into the concluding portion of our service, beginning with Aleinu L'Shabeach on page 586. Please rise.
Aleinu L'Shabeach L'Adon HaKol L'Titz G'nevla L'Yotzer Breshit Shelo Asanu Kegoyei Haratzot V'lo Samanu K'mishpachot Ha'adama Shelo Sam Chelkeinu Kahem V'gor Aleinu Kechol Hamonam V'anachnu Koyim Mishtachavim Umodim Lifnei Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Page 591.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו Please be seated.
Our thoughts now turn to those in our community, our loved ones who are no longer with us. Congregation Kol Ami remembers this evening Mark Lelyveld, husband of Adelaide Lelyveld and father of Philip Lelyveld, Philip S. Papel, father of Stanley Papel, Rosario Rinaldi, grandfather of Russell Lyon, Fred Mandel, friend of Edward Kesson. All of these have a plaque here memorializing their loved ones. We also remember Annette Levy-Ratkin, the paternal grandmother of Rabbi Ross Levy, Lot Steintal, friend of Dr. Jane Drucker, Ali Kaiser, friend of Dr. Jane Drucker, Virginia Sen, the mother of Miles Sen, Don Eugene Robbins, father of Sherry Robbins, Yeva Gomberg, aunt of Lilia Lukowski, Robin Tabak Ariel, friend of Stephanie Small, Uriel Masad, husband of Andrea Paymar, Muriel Stein, aunt of Andrew Stein, Ruben Juan Jose Guerrero Ibarra, husband of Eric Gordon, Paula Tabor, friend of Daniel Blatt, Alan Weiner, brother of Robert Weiner. We further remember Ron Stoner, Allison Bentley, Sandy Saltzman, Jay Soler, Shirley Rosenberg, Nadine Holt, Christopher Hughes, Yusuf Lukido, Evelyn Ruth Rich, Keith Cantrell, Rob Schlesinger, Leona Bander, Marlene Brom, Herb Jacobson, Richard Frank, Louis Vincelli, Dave Hall, Howard Romanov, Greg Sonkin, Ruth Foster Williams, Reba Goldman, Michael Simental, Victor Escobar, Alvin Gross, Ernie Benson, Kathy Weiss, Ellen Metzner, Janice Hewen-Levy, Anton Malley, Josh Kaplan, Don Hollis, Jason Thomas Lodge, Elaine Cohen, Maeve Elzenberg, Barton Kogan, Debbie Blatt, Stephen Shapiro, Carol Rosenthal. We add to these names any that you might have here in the congregation, if you'd like to share them aloud, anyone you're remembering. Thank you. We encourage anyone online to share with us any names of loved ones you're remembering this evening as we rise together for our Mourner's Kaddish on page 598. Yit Gadol v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach yiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, B'chayeho u'v'yomeho u'chaye t'chol beit Yisrael, B'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'mei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei d'kudusha barichu. Le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata. Tush b'hata v'nehemata. Damiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabbah min Shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mamav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru Amen. Zichnam livracha, may their memories be for our blessing.
Amen.
We
Please
will-
be seated. Our concluding song, if you recognize the melody that was wonderfully played by Alice as we entered into this service, will be Lechi Lach, written by Debbie Friedman. And obviously, since this being Parshat Lech Lecha, the Shabbat, I felt it was fitting. You can actually find the lyrics for it in the Shirei Ami songbook, which should be next to the prayer book in the little side cubbies there. If you'll turn to page 23.
Lechi lach to a land that Lechi lach. On your journey I will bless you. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Lechi lach. Lechi lach. And I shall make your name great. Lech lecha. And all shall praise your name. Lechi lach. To the place that I will show you. Lesimchat chayim. Lesimchat chayim. Lesimchat chayim. Lechi lach. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Lechi lach.
Great. In a moment, we'll enjoy an oneg together outside. And so before that, we'll say the motzi together, our blessing over bread and over a meal. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, hamotzi lechem min ha'aretz.
Amen. Te'avon, thank you so much for joining us. Wishing everyone a Shabbat Shalom. May you find and be a blessing. May you find peace, Shalom, and may you find rest.